When everything falls apart, stay still. When the noise grows, stay silent. Your first reaction builds your future. Most people speak too soon. They complain. They explain. They chase peace by losing control. But silence builds power. Silence heals your mind. Silence is strength in disguise. When you stop reacting, you stop losing energy. When you stay calm, you control chaos. Silence is not weakness. It is precision. It is wisdom. It is how the strong survive storms. It is how the calm create order. This audiobook will teach you how to stay silent. When everything breaks. When people test you. When the world shakes you. You will learn how stillness becomes strength. How quiet minds always win. So listen carefully. Breathe deeply. And let these words remind you of your power. Welcome to Book Verse, a place where silence speaks and wisdom grows. Subscribe now, because here we turn pain into power and books into transformation. Chapter 1. Stop explaining yourself. Every time you explain your pain, you feed it. Every time you defend your peace, you lose it. Every time you try to prove your worth, you forget who you are. Listen carefully. You do not need to explain yourself. Not to people who do not understand. Not to people who never cared. Not to people who use your words against you. You have been explaining your pain for too long. You have been trying to make people see your truth. You have been hoping they will finally say, "I understand." But they will not. Because most people do not listen to understand. They listen to respond. They listen to judge. They listen to feed their ego. You do not owe them your story. You do not owe them your explanation. You owe yourself your peace. Every time you say, "I didn't mean it like that," you give away your power. Every time you justify your choices, you place your value in their hands. And every time you defend your silence, you break the very peace you're trying to protect. Stop explaining yourself. That is the lesson. That is the test. That is the beginning of freedom. The trap of validation. You want people to understand you. That is natural. You want to be seen. You want to be heard. But validation is a silent trap. It tells you that peace is something you earn. It tells you that calm is something they must approve. It tells you that your worth depends on their opinion. It does not. Your worth is not a debate. Your value is not a vote. You do not need their permission to exist. The world has trained you to over-explain, to soften your truth, to prove your kindness, to justify your boundaries. But that cycle must end. When you live for understanding, you die by misunderstanding. When you chase approval, you lose authenticity. When you keep explaining, you keep bleeding energy. The truth is simple. They do not need to understand. You do. The power of silence. Silence is not weakness. It is control. It is power. It is the space where truth breathes and noise dies. You have to learn the language of silence. It says what words cannot. It protects what words destroy. When people question your motives, stay silent. When they twist your story, stay silent. When they doubt your worth, stay silent. Because silence does not need defense. It holds its own weight. It speaks through calm energy. It commands without effort. People will say, "Why are you so quiet?" They will think your silence means guilt. Let them. Because they do not understand silence. They fear it. The calm one always wins. Because the calm one sees clearly. The calm one does not react. The calm one waits. And in that waiting, the storm passes. Repeat this phrase. My silence is my statement. Say it slowly. Again. My silence is my statement. That phrase is your shield. That phrase will save your energy. That phrase will protect your peace. When you stop explaining, you start growing. When you stop explaining yourself, you start listening to yourself. You start hearing your real voice. You start feeling what your soul has been whispering. You realize that peace does not need an audience. Healing does not need applause. Growth does not need permission. The moment you stop explaining, something shifts inside you. You stop chasing closure. You stop chasing approval. You stop chasing people who drain you. You begin to live differently. You begin to move quietly. You begin to protect your focus. That is the power of silence. It makes you whole again. It takes you back to your center. It reminds you that you are always enough. You have a choice. Every time someone questions you, you have a choice. React or remain silent. Defend or detach. Fight for approval or keep your peace. You have a choice. That is the key. When you choose silence, you choose discipline. When you choose calm, you choose strength. When you choose not to explain, you choose evolution. Because silence does not mean ignorance. It means intelligence. It means you see more than you say. It means you know when to speak and when to conserve your energy. There is a time to explain. There is a time to clarify. But not every battle deserves your voice. The strong do not speak every truth. They protect it. They live it. They let results speak for them. That is the quiet confidence of those who know their worth. People will misunderstand you, let them. They will call you cold. They will call you distant. They will call you arrogant. Let them. They are reacting to their own noise, not your silence. They are projecting their own chaos onto your calm. They are trying to pull you back into noise. Do not go back. Do not defend your peace. Do not explain your calm. Remember this. It is not your job to make people comfortable with your boundaries. It is your job to stay grounded in your truth. Every misunderstanding does not need correction. Every attack does not need reaction. Every opinion does not need your energy. Let people talk. Let them guess. Let them wonder. You are not here to be understood. You are here to understand yourself. The invisible strength. Real strength is invisible. It moves quietly. It builds without noise. It does not announce its power, it demonstrates it. You will never see a lion explaining why it roars. You will never see a storm explaining why it came. You will never see peace explaining why it stays. The world has confused noise with strength. But strength is not volume. It is stability. It is self-control. It is discipline in the middle of chaos. You are not cold. You are calm. You are not weak. You are wise. You are not silent. You are strategic. That is the difference between reaction and mastery. Practical power. Here is what you can do today. Pause before you speak. Count to 3. Ask yourself, does this need words, or will silence say more? Do not explain your boundaries. Set them. Keep them. Stand by them. Boundaries are not up for debate. Watch who demands explanations. The people who respect you will not need one. The people who doubt you will never believe one. You will notice something. When you stop explaining, your circle shrinks. But your peace expands. That is a fair trade. Repetition for strength. Say it again. My silence is my statement. Let it sink in. Let it echo. Let it become a habit. You do not need to fight for your truth. You do not need to prove your worth. You do not need to explain your calm. Because your results will speak. Your peace will speak. Your energy will speak. Your silence will speak. Transition to next chapter. You have learned the first rule of power. Stop explaining yourself. When you master this, you control your emotional energy. You no longer leak strength through words that no one deserves. This is the foundation. This is where transformation begins. You mastered your reactions. Now, it is time to master your attention. Chapter 2. The loudest person is the weakest. The loudest person in the room is often the weakest one inside. Noise is their mask. Volume is their armor. Because when fear speaks, it shouts. Real strength whispers. Real power moves in silence. Real confidence needs no microphone. When you see someone shouting, remember this: loudness is panic, quiet is power. Say that again. Loudness is panic, quiet is power. Let that line stay in your mind. The truth behind loudness. People shout because they want control. They shout because they want attention. They shout because silence makes them nervous. Noise is their protection. Silence feels like exposure. Because when you are silent, you face yourself. And many people cannot face themselves. That is why they raise their voice. They think volume equals confidence. But volume only hides insecurity. The one who knows who they are does not need to prove it. Think about this. When a lion walks, it does not roar every minute. When a storm approaches, it does not scream. When a king enters a room, he does not shout. Power does not need to announce itself. Noise is the behavior of the unsure. Calm is the mark of the strong. You have to decide which one you want to be. You can live loud, or you can live strong. But you cannot do both. The calm warrior. The warrior is calm before battle. He breathes slow. He watches. He studies. He waits. He does not shout. He does not panic. He does not try to prove he is brave. Because bravery is not in his words. It is in his posture. It is in his stillness. It is in his eyes. That is discipline. That is control. That is power. The warrior has trained his emotions. He has learned one truth: noise is weakness. Because the louder you get, the less you listen. And the less you listen, the more you miss. You have a choice. You can react or you can remain calm. You can raise your voice or raise your awareness. That is the key. Modern life is full of noise. Everywhere you go, people are shouting. On social media, in meetings, at home. Everyone wants to be heard. But few want to understand. The world has become addicted to volume. We think loud means confident. We think bold means screaming. But that is a lie. The loudest ones are often the most afraid. Afraid to be ignored. Afraid to be unseen. Afraid to face the silence that reveals their truth. But the calm ones, they are different. They listen. They measure. They wait. They respond with precision. And that is why calm people always win. Because when others react, they observe. When others shout, they think. When others panic, they plan. Loudness is panic. Quiet is power. Repeat that again. Loudness is panic. Quiet is power. The psychology of volume. Let us talk about why this matters. When you raise your voice, your brain enters defense mode. Your breathing changes. Your heart rate spikes. You lose control. You are no longer leading the moment. The moment is leading you. You are reacting instead of deciding. That is weakness in disguise. Now look at a calm person. They breathe steady. They think clearly. They control the tone. And the tone controls the room. That is power. Because power is not about noise. It is about control. It is about composure under pressure. Anyone can be loud. Few can stay calm. And calm is rare, because calm takes training. Calm takes discipline. You cannot fake calm. You have to build it. That is why monks are quiet. That is why wise people pause before they speak. That is why great leaders lower their voice when others raise theirs. Because silence pulls attention. Whispers force people to lean in. Calm tone commands more respect than shouting ever could. Real-world power examples. Look at powerful leaders. They do not shout in anger. They speak with intention. Every word lands. Every pause means something. That is control. That is confidence. Now think of a monk. He lives in silence. Not because he is afraid to speak, but because he has mastered his mind. His silence is not empty. It is full of awareness. That is real strength. And think about warriors. The great ones do not talk during battle. They act. They move with calm precision. They trust their training. They do not waste energy on noise. You see, silence is not the absence of power. It is the focus of it. When you channel silence, you channel strength. Loudness scatters your energy. Silence concentrates it. That is why silence feels powerful, because it is. Repetition builds mastery. Let us repeat it. Because repetition builds power. Loudness is panic. Quiet is power. Say it again. Loudness is panic. Quiet is power. You must make this truth a habit. You must train yourself to stay calm when others lose control. You must train yourself to listen when others shout. You must train yourself to lower your voice when you feel anger rise. That is real work. That is inner discipline. You do not need to prove your strength. You need to live it. You need to show it through calmness, through stillness, through control. Practical steps to control volume. Here is how you start today. Step 1. Pause before you speak. When emotion rises, take a breath. Count to 3. Ask yourself, will noise help or will calm help? Choose calm. Step 2. Lower your tone. Do not match their volume. When someone raises their voice, lower yours. It breaks their rhythm. It disarms their ego. It gives you control. Step 3. Listen fully. When you listen, you see more. You hear what is not said. You understand what they fear. And that gives you an advantage. Step 4. Use silence as a response. Not every attack deserves an answer. Not every insult deserves reaction. Silence confuses the weak and strengthens the wise. Step 5. Reflect after conflict. Ask yourself, did I react or respond? Did I shout or stay centered? That reflection builds awareness. Awareness builds control. Control builds power. The discipline of quiet power. Quiet power is not natural. It is trained. It is built through failure, through patience, through self-awareness. At first, silence will feel heavy. It will feel unnatural. Your mind will want to speak. Your ego will want to win. But hold your ground. Because every second you stay calm, you grow stronger. Every time you stay quiet, you gain control. Every moment you resist noise, you build focus. That is how masters are made. Not through reaction, but through discipline. You have to practice being calm every day. In traffic, at work, at home, with people who test your patience. Every moment of silence is training. Every time you stay quiet, you rise above noise. That is how you evolve. Let the world talk. People will say you are cold. They will say you are emotionless. They will say you are too quiet. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. You are not responsible for their perception. You are responsible for your peace. The more you grow, the less you need to speak. The more you see, the less you need to prove. The more you understand, the less you need to explain. Silence becomes your armor. Composure becomes your sword. Calm becomes your identity. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. Final reflection. Loudness is panic. Quiet is power. You must live that truth daily. You have a choice, to react or to rise. You have a choice, to speak or to stay still. You have a choice, to chase noise or to build control. The weak shout for attention. The strong build it in silence. When you understand that, you stop fighting for space. You become the space. You stop competing for attention. You command it without trying. That is the power of calm. That is the strength of silence. That is what makes the loudest person the weakest one in the room. Transition to the next chapter. You have learned the truth of sound and silence. You now understand that calm is not weakness, it is precision. You have seen that silence commands more respect than noise ever could. You have built your base of control. Now, it is time to build your focus. Because silence means nothing if your mind is still distracted. Let us fix that next. Chapter 3. Detach from the drama. Chaos feeds on attention. It lives when you give it energy. It grows when you react. It wins when you care too much. Drama is a trap. It looks emotional. It feels important. But it steals your focus. It steals your peace. You have a choice. You can feed the fire, or you can walk away. That is the difference between control and chaos. Every argument wants your reaction. Every rumor wants your defense. Every insult wants your attention. But remember this, not every battle is yours. Say it to yourself again and again. Not my storm. Not my noise. Let these words become your armor. Let them protect your mind. When you react, you lose energy. When you chase every opinion, you lose time. When you explain yourself to everyone, you lose peace. Silence is not surrender. It is strategy. Real power does not chase noise. It stays calm, still, focused. It lets the storm pass. That is strength. Think about powerful people in history. Leaders, monks, warriors. They all shared one skill, calm presence. They did not argue with chaos. They observed it. They waited. They acted only when it mattered. You do not have to fix everything. You do not have to answer every message. You do not have to prove your point. Your peace is your proof. Your calm is your confidence. Drama wants one thing, reaction. It feeds on it like fuel. Every word you say gives it more life. Every post you reply to gives it more noise. So stop feeding it. Let silence starve it. When someone attacks you with words, stay silent. When someone tries to drag you into gossip, walk away. When the world tests your patience, breathe and detach. That is not weakness. That is emotional intelligence. Remember, your attention is power. Whatever gets your attention controls your energy. That is the key. So be careful where you place it. Not every story deserves your presence. Not every emotion deserves your response. Detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. You are not ignoring people. You are protecting your peace. You are choosing what matters. When your emotions run wild, stop and ask, is this my storm? If the answer is no, step back. If the answer is no, stay still. You are not required to attend every fight. Think about how much time people waste on drama. They talk about others. They complain about rumors. They replay insults in their minds. Hours of energy, gone. All for what? Nothing changes. No one wins. You just end up tired. Now imagine if you used that energy to build yourself, to learn, to grow, to heal, to win. That is the shift that changes everything. You cannot rise if you keep reacting. You cannot focus if you keep fighting noise. You cannot grow if you keep explaining yourself. It is time to detach. Repeat after me. Not my storm. Not my noise. Let that phrase sink in. Say it when you wake up. Say it when people test you. Say it when the world feels heavy. Not my storm. Not my noise. This is how you protect your energy. This is how you train your mind. You learn to stay calm in chaos. You learn to control yourself when nothing else is in control. You learn to rise above the noise. People will not understand your calm. They will call it arrogance. They will call it pride. Let them. You are not here to explain your peace. You are here to keep it. Understand this. Drama ends when you stop reacting. It cannot exist without your response. That is your power. That is your silence. When someone yells, stay still. When someone mocks, stay silent. When someone spreads lies, stay focused. Their chaos is not your responsibility. Your energy is sacred. Detach from the drama, and you will see the truth. You will see how small most problems are. You will see how strong you become. You will see how calm your life feels. You are not cold. You are not heartless. You are disciplined. You are focused. You are training your mind to stop reacting. That is maturity. It is not about ignoring everything. It is about controlling what deserves attention. That is emotional power. That is mastery. Detach does not mean you stop caring. It means you start choosing. You choose peace over panic. You choose silence over shouting. You choose growth over gossip. Every time you hold back your reaction, you grow stronger. Every time you stay silent, your power builds. Every time you walk away, you protect your mind. That is progress. Repeat this truth. You do not have to prove anything. You do not have to win every argument. You do not have to answer every voice. Your peace is proof. Your calm is victory. Let the noise fade. Let the storm move on. You stay still. You stay grounded. You stay focused. You are the eye of the storm, untouched, calm, strong. You have a choice. Feed the noise, or feed your mind. React, or remain calm. Lose control, or master it. That is the key. So next time chaos comes, pause. Breathe. Remember your mantra, not my storm, not my noise. Smile inside. Because you know something most people never learn, silence wins. Detach from the drama, and you detach from weakness. Detach from the drama, and you connect with peace. Detach from the drama, and you find yourself again. You mastered the art of silence. You learned how to walk away from chaos. Now, let us go deeper. Let us talk about emotional armor. Because when you stop reacting, the world will test you harder. Chapter 4: The Science of Emotional Stillness. Your mind is a battlefield. Every thought is a soldier. Every emotion is a command. And most people? They lose that war before it even begins. They react. They panic. They rush. They let emotion drive the moment. And when emotion drives, logic dies. You have a choice. You can let your feelings control you, or you can learn to control your feelings. That is the key. Stillness is not passive. It is power. It is precision. It is the science of staying calm when your body screams to act. When chaos hits, your brain goes into survival mode. It activates what is called the fight or flight response. You either attack or you run. That is what your brain was built to do. But you are not an animal. You are aware. You can override that system. You can train it. This is what emotional stillness truly means. Not freezing, not ignoring, but pausing, breathing, choosing. Breathe. Pause. Decide later. Say it again. Breathe. Pause. Decide later. This is how you rewire your brain. This is how you stop losing control. Let me explain what happens inside your body. When stress hits, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, fires first. It floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heartbeat rises. Your breathing speeds up. Your muscles tighten. You are ready to fight or flee. That is useful when you are in real danger. But most of the time, the danger is emotional. An argument, a rumor, a rejection, a loss. You are not actually under attack. Your ego is. Yet your body reacts as if your life depends on it. So what can you do? You pause. You breathe. You let the chemicals fade before you act. That is how soldiers stay alive. That is how surgeons stay precise. That is how monks stay peaceful. Think about a soldier in combat. Bullets flying. Chaos everywhere. If he reacts too soon, he dies. If he freezes too long, he dies. So what does he do? He trains for stillness. He breathes. He focuses. He acts only when ready. The same goes for surgeons. They face chaos every day. One wrong move, one emotional reaction, and a life is gone. But they stay calm. They slow their breath. They trust their training. Stillness becomes survival. And monks, they live in the opposite world. No war, no blood, but the same principle. Stillness is their weapon. They breathe through chaos. They let emotion pass like clouds. They do not fight it. They observe it. You can learn that too. No matter what happens, a breakup, an insult, a failure, your first step is the same. Breathe. Pause. Decide later. This is not weakness. This is mastery. You are rewiring your brain to pause before reacting. You are creating space between feeling and action. That small space changes everything. When you pause, you activate your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that controls logic, reason, and long-term decisions. It is the opposite of the fear center. It is your command center. When you breathe, you bring oxygen to your brain. You calm the storm. You slow your heartbeat. You tell your body, I am safe. That is emotional science. That is how stillness works. People think control means tension, but true control feels like relaxation. It feels like slow breathing. It feels like calm focus. Stillness is not something you find. It is something you build. You build it every time you resist the urge to react. Every time you walk away from drama. Every time you wait before replying. You train your nervous system to serve you, not scare you. Say it again. Breathe. Pause. Decide later. You do not have to fix everything right now. You do not have to answer immediately. You do not have to respond to every trigger. You can wait. You can think. You can choose. That pause, that single breath, can save relationships. It can save reputations. It can save your peace. When someone insults you, breathe. When something goes wrong, pause. When life feels heavy, decide later. That is how you win the inner game. Your goal is not to be emotionless. Your goal is to be emotionally trained. That means you still feel pain. You still feel anger. You still feel fear. But you do not act on them immediately. You breathe through them. You let the wave pass. You wait until the water clears. Then you move. That is emotional stillness. Think about all the regrets people carry. Words said too soon. Decisions made too fast. Anger released too loud. All because they reacted. All because they did not pause. You have a choice. You can repeat their mistakes. Or you can master the pause. Every time you feel triggered, say this inside. My breath is my control. Say it until your body listens. Say it until your emotions calm down. You will notice something. When you stop reacting, your world slows down. You see things clearly. You think sharper. You act smarter. You speak wiser. That is why the calmest person in the room always wins. Because they see everything before they move. They are not rushing. They are observing. They are aware. That awareness is your power. That pause is your weapon. That stillness is your edge. So the next time you feel that rush of emotion, remember the science. Your brain is just trying to protect you. It does not know the difference between danger and discomfort. You have to teach it. You have to train it. That training happens one breath at a time. Breathe. Pause. Decide later. When life feels fast, slow it down. When people scream, stay calm. When emotions rise, anchor yourself in stillness. That is what separates the weak from the strong. That is what builds unshakable composure. It is not about avoiding feelings. It is about understanding them. When you understand them, they stop controlling you. That is emotional maturity. You do not need to meditate for hours. You do not need to live like a monk. You just need 1 second of awareness. One deep breath. One conscious pause. That is enough to change your reaction and your life. Stillness is not silence. Stillness is strength. It is calm in motion. It is power under pressure. It is the quiet inside the storm. Say it again with me. Breathe. Pause. Decide later. That is your mantra. That is your armor. That is your method. You have learned the science behind control. You understand how your brain works. Now it is time to apply it. It is time to protect that stillness in a loud world. Because next comes the real challenge, staying calm when the world tries to break you. You learned how to be still. Now, let us talk about how to stay unshaken when life tests your limits. Chapter 5. Silence is not weakness, it's control. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Most people do not understand this. They think silence means fear. They think silence means you have no answer. They think silence means defeat. But they are wrong. Silence is power. Silence is presence. Silence is strength without noise. When you stop reacting, you start leading. When you stop explaining, you start commanding. Control is quiet. Remember that. People expect reaction. They push you, they provoke you, they test you. They want to see you lose control. Because once you react, they win. Once you raise your voice, they know they have you. They own your emotions. But when you stay silent, everything changes. Their rhythm breaks. Their power slips. Their confidence shakes. Your silence forces them to face themselves. Control is quiet. Say it again in your mind. Control is quiet. In every argument, there is a trap. The trap is emotional reaction. Someone says something cruel. They insult you. They lie about you. They raise their voice. And you feel that fire inside. You want to answer back. You want to prove them wrong. You want to show that you are strong. But real strength is not noise. Real strength is calm. You breathe. You pause. You wait. You let silence speak for you. Because silence makes people uncomfortable. They expect words. They expect chaos. But your silence? It is unexpected. It is discipline in action. It is control under pressure. Control is quiet. Do not forget that. In relationships, silence can shift power. When you argue, both people want to be right. Both want to be heard. But no one wants to listen. If you are the one who stays calm, you win. You give space. You create pause. You break the pattern of noise. Silence allows truth to rise. It allows emotions to settle. It allows logic to breathe again. When you stay silent, you are not ignoring them. You are mastering yourself. You are choosing peace over drama. You are choosing maturity over impulse. You are choosing control. And that is what power really looks like. In business, silence can win negotiations. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill the empty space. They speak too soon. They give away too much. But the one who can sit in silence controls the deal. When you make an offer, then stay silent. You shift the pressure to the other side. They start overthinking. They start talking. They reveal more than they planned. Every second of silence builds power in your favor. Because silence forces honesty. It exposes weakness. It demands patience. Control is quiet. Repeat that in your mind every day. When you are angry, silence is your shield. Anger destroys clarity. Anger burns logic. But silence cools the fire. Silence gives you distance. Distance gives you power. You can still act. You can still speak. But only when the emotion is gone. When your words are calm. When your heart is steady. Because words spoken in anger always cost too much. You cannot take them back. But silence never damages your power. Silence protects it. Control is quiet. That is the key. There is a kind of silence that is not peace. It is fear. It is avoidance. That silence is weakness. That silence hides truth. That silence lets others control you. But the silence we talk about here is not that. This silence is awareness. This silence is strength under fire. This silence is choosing your moment. It is knowing when to speak and when to hold back. You do not stay silent forever. You stay silent until you are clear. Until your emotions are calm. Until your words are powerful. That is control. That is mastery. In life, people will test your silence. They will say, "Why are you not talking?" They will say, "You are scared." They will say, "You are weak." Let them. You do not owe them noise. You do not owe them reaction. You owe yourself discipline. Because silence is not surrender. It is strategy. It is patience. It is power in motion. When you speak after silence, your words carry weight. They land hard. They stay longer. They change things. That is why great leaders, great warriors, great minds, they are not loud. They are steady. They speak less but mean more. Control is quiet. Never forget that. Start practicing silence today. When someone tries to provoke you, pause. When you feel your emotions rising, pause. When the room gets tense, pause. Count your breath. Let the noise pass. Let silence do the work. The world will notice your calm. People will start respecting your discipline. They will sense your control. They will trust your strength. Because in a world full of noise, the one who can stay silent holds the real power. Control is quiet. Silence is strength. Stillness is command. Remember this every time your emotions try to take over. You do not need to speak to prove power. You show power by staying calm. You show power by staying silent. You show power by staying in control. Control is quiet. That is the rule. That is the mindset. That is the discipline. You have a choice. You can react like everyone else, or you can rise above like few ever do. The choice is yours. The silence is yours. The control is yours. You mastered your emotions. You mastered your reactions. Now, let us move deeper. Because silence is only the beginning of control. You learned to hold your tongue. Now, you must learn to hold your energy. Chapter 6. Speak only when it adds value. Most words are noise. Few are strategy. Most people speak to fill space. The wise speak to create impact. You do not speak to be heard. You speak to be effective. That is the mantra. Repeat it. Do not speak to be heard. Speak to be effective. When you understand this truth, your whole life changes. You stop talking for attention. You start talking for influence. You stop trying to impress. You start trying to express. Every word becomes a tool. Every pause becomes a weapon. Every silence becomes power. Because in the world of noise, the one who speaks less commands more. Control is quiet. And speech, when chosen wisely, is power made visible. Think about Steve Jobs. He was never the loudest person in the room. He was calm. He was clear. He was intentional. When he spoke, people leaned forward. They wanted to hear. They wanted to understand. Because they knew he would not waste words. He used pauses like punctuation for emotion. He let silence shape his message. He made every sentence count. That is what it means to speak with value. You do not rush. You do not ramble. You deliver your words like bullets, sharp and precise. Look at Elon Musk. He pauses before he speaks. He thinks. He measures his words. People sometimes think he is slow. He is not. He is strategic. He understands that every word has energy. Once it leaves your mouth, you cannot pull it back. He uses silence to buy clarity. He uses pause to create focus. He uses few words to make strong impact. That is the art of powerful communication. Not more words, but meaningful ones. Remember your best mentor or teacher. The one who did not talk much. The one who just looked at you, and you understood. They never raised their voice. They never spoke for applause. But when they spoke, you listened. You remembered. You changed. That is what effective speech does. It leaves a mark. It transforms behavior. Do not speak to show knowledge. Speak to create understanding. Do not speak to sound smart. Speak to make others think deeper. That is communication with purpose. When you talk too much, you lose precision. When you explain too much, you lose mystery. When you react too fast, you lose power. Silence gives space to meaning. Pauses give time to impact. Speak only when your words can make a difference. Speak only when silence will be weaker than your truth. That is discipline. That is control. In every room, in every meeting, in every argument, watch the one who talks less. They always lead the energy. They always get respect. Because people trust restraint. When you speak only when necessary, people notice your words more. They value your thoughts more. They feel your confidence. Talking less does not make you small. It makes you powerful. It makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability is influence. You control the flow. You control the pace. You control the energy. You do not chase attention. You attract it. Learn this rule. Your words must do one of three things. They must educate, inspire, or direct. If they do not, hold them back. Before you speak, ask, will this add value? Will this solve a problem? Will this create peace or progress? If the answer is no, silence is your best response. You do not need to explain everything. You do not need to defend yourself. You do not need to win every conversation. Sometimes, the best answer is no answer. Sometimes, silence says more than speech ever could. Control is quiet. And wisdom is precise. Speaking effectively is not about volume. It is about vision. It is about clarity. It is about knowing your message. When you speak, speak with structure. Speak with purpose. Speak with presence. Every sentence should move the listener forward. Every phrase should build emotion. Every word should carry weight. You are not performing. You are communicating. You are not talking to be liked. You are talking to lead. That is how powerful people speak. You have a choice. You can speak like everyone else, fast, emotional, reactive. Or you can speak like a leader, slow, measured, intentional. Do not speak to fill the air. Do not speak to prove a point. Speak only when it matters. Speak only when it adds value. That is discipline. That is focus. That is power. And when you master that, you master attention. You master respect. You master your presence. Because silence gives you strength. And your words, when finally spoken, will carry the weight of that silence. So remember your mantra. Do not speak to be heard. Speak to be effective. Make every word count. Make every pause speak. Make every silence mean something. That is how the greats communicate. That is how the calm lead the loud. That is how power stays invisible until it speaks. You have mastered silence. Now you have learned when to speak. Next, you must learn what to protect. Because even your focus, your energy, your attention, they are limited. And if you waste them, you lose your edge. Chapter 7. Master the pause before reaction. The space between emotion and response decides destiny. That small space. That silent second. That single breath. It changes everything. The people who control that space control their lives. The people who react too fast destroy their peace. You have a choice. Always. Before you react, you can pause. Before you speak, you can breathe. Before you move, you can think. Pause, and the storm passes. That is the mantra. Repeat it again and again. Pause, and the storm passes. Anger wants speed. Fear wants reaction. Ego wants to fight back. But wisdom, real wisdom, waits. You cannot control the world. You cannot control other people. but you can control that moment before reaction. That is where your power lives. That is the key. Think about Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, a man with absolute power. He could punish, he could destroy, but he did not. He wrote, he thought, he paused. Before reacting, he wrote his thoughts down. He asked himself questions. He trained his mind to stay calm. He understood this. You do not react to the world. You respond to yourself first. That is what made him great. That is what made him wise. When others fought, he reflected. When others shouted, he breathed. When others panicked, he stayed still. And that stillness, that pause, that discipline, made him stronger than any army. Now think about your life. Every argument, every insult, every test. The fight always begins inside your head. Someone says something rude. You feel the fire rise. Your chest tightens. Your mind screams, react now. But that is the trap. If you react in anger, you lose control. You give your peace to the enemy. You hand your power away. You cannot control their words. But you can control your breath. You can control your pause. You can control yourself. Pause, and the storm passes. The brain's fight or flight system wants action. It wants to defend. It wants to attack. It does not want to wait. But you must train it. You must rewire it. You must make the pause automatic. Here is how. When you feel your heart race, do not move. When you feel heat in your body, breathe. When you feel the urge to answer, count. 3 seconds of silence can save you hours of regret. 3 breaths can rebuild your power. 3 pauses can rewrite your story. That is emotional mastery. That is control. You have a choice every time you face a storm. You can react fast and lose control. Or you can pause and stay powerful. The pause is not weakness. It is intelligence. It is emotional strategy. It tells your brain, I am in control now. It tells your body, we are safe. It tells your soul, wait, the truth will show itself. And it always does. Because storms fade, and people reveal themselves. But only if you wait long enough to see clearly. When you pause, you give space for reason. When you pause, you let the noise settle. When you pause, you hear your real voice. That is the voice of wisdom. That is the voice of discipline. Every warrior trains for the pause. Every monk prays for the pause. Every leader lives in the pause. The pause separates the ordinary from the great, the emotional from the stable, the weak from the wise. Imagine you are in an argument. The other person raises their voice. They push your buttons. They want a reaction. You stay calm. You breathe. You wait. Your silence makes them uneasy. Your calm makes them question themselves. Your control breaks their rhythm. That is power. You did not fight. You did not argue. You just paused and won. Because control always wins. And silence always speaks louder than emotion. You do not need to react to everything. Not every insult needs an answer. Not every battle deserves your energy. You do not need to prove your point. You need to protect your peace. That is the difference between control and chaos. Your job is not to win the noise. Your job is to master your response. That is emotional strength. That is mental clarity. So train yourself. When you feel triggered, pause. When you feel defensive, pause. When you feel attacked, pause. Even one deep breath gives your brain a new choice. Even 1 second of silence creates distance from emotion. You are not your reaction. You are your response. You can break old habits. You can train new reflexes. You can master the pause. That is how you become unshakable. That is how you lead yourself. Remember Marcus Aurelius again. He faced betrayal, war, and loss. But he stayed calm. He wrote in his journal instead of shouting. He paused instead of punishing. He reflected instead of reacting. He was not born with peace. He practiced it. He earned it. And so can you. Every time you hold back anger, every time you choose breath over blame, every time you let silence speak first, you grow stronger. You grow wiser. You grow freer. You have a choice in every storm. React fast, or pause and see clearly. React with emotion, or respond with control. That small pause is your power. That pause is your protection. That pause is your proof that you are growing. It is not about being emotionless. It is about being emotionally intelligent. It is about learning to respond, not to react. That is mastery. That is peace. So repeat it again. Say it with strength. Pause, and the storm passes. Because it always does. The anger fades. The fear quiets. The truth stands. And you? You stay calm. You stay grounded. You stay in control. That is how you win without fighting. That is how you move without noise. That is how you grow without breaking. You have mastered the pause. Now it is time to master focus. Because silence and control mean nothing if your energy still leaks everywhere. Chapter 8: Silence During Failure. Failure tests the truth of who you are. Anyone can speak when life is good. Anyone can post when they are winning. But when everything falls apart, silence becomes strength. When life collapses, your ego screams. It wants to explain. It wants to defend. It wants to show the world you are still fine. But you are not fine, not yet. And that is okay. This is the moment that builds real power. When life breaks, and you choose silence. When you fall quietly, instead of begging for noise. When you rise privately, instead of performing recovery. That is control. That is dignity. Repeat this with me. Fall quietly. Rise privately. Say it again. Fall quietly. Rise privately. That is the rule of strength. Because silence during failure is not shame. It is strategy. It is how warriors heal without an audience. It is how leaders rebuild without distraction. It is how disciplined minds recover without validation. Every failure has two battles. The first battle is the fall itself. The second is how you handle that fall. The first is external. The second is internal. And the second decides who you become. When you fail, people will talk. They will guess. They will gossip. They will build stories that you never told. Let them. You do not need to correct noise. You do not need to feed attention. Remember this: chaos dies when you starve it. That is the key. Failure feeds on reaction. When you react, you keep the wound open. When you explain, you give away your peace. When you chase approval, you lose dignity. So pause. Step back. Stay quiet. You have a choice. You can fight noise, or you can protect focus. And protecting focus always wins. Silence is not a lack of courage. It is emotional discipline. It is proof that you lead yourself. Anyone can panic. Anyone can post their pain online. But it takes a strong mind to hold still. When you are silent, you heal faster. Because energy does not scatter. Because your focus stays on rebuilding, not on defending. Because your mind stays on direction, not on drama. Think about it. When a building collapses, the first step is not talking about it. The first step is clearing the debris, quietly. You clear what fell, before you start building again. Your mind works the same way. Clean first, rebuild later. Silence gives you that space. Silence is your shelter after failure. It is the room where your spirit breathes again. It is the pause that rebuilds your power. Real success stories start in silence. They start in the dark. They start when nobody is watching. They grow, one quiet decision at a time. You do not need to announce the rebuild. You do not need to explain the fall. You need to stay focused. You need to stay calm. You need to stay quiet. Fall quietly. Rise privately. Say it again until it becomes instinct. Fall quietly. Rise privately. When you fail, the world will tempt you to speak, to post, to justify, to tell your version of the story. But that story can wait, because silence will tell a better one later, through results. Remember this truth. Results speak louder than reactions. Discipline speaks louder than emotion. Growth speaks louder than defense. That is how strong people rebuild. They use the energy of pain to work, not to speak. They use the lessons of failure to think, not to perform. They rebuild character, not a public image. The quiet rebuild is the real rebuild. Because when you build in silence, you are not building for validation. You are building for truth. You are building for purpose. You are building for peace. Silence protects you from opinion. It shields you from pity. It saves you from shallow sympathy. The world is quick to watch pain, but slow to understand it. Do not give them a show. Give them results, later. Every time you feel like explaining, stop. Every time you want to defend, pause. Ask yourself, will this help my growth? If the answer is no, stay quiet. You have a choice. You can chase their approval, or you can earn your respect. One path is noise. The other is silence. Choose silence. It is not about proving you are fine. It is about becoming fine. It is not about fixing the image. It is about fixing the foundation. That is discipline. That is power. You do not need their permission to rebuild. You do not need their applause to begin again. You need silence. You need patience. You need focus. Think about the strongest people you admire. You will notice something. They do not speak when they fail. They disappear. They rebuild. And then they come back, better. That is the secret rhythm of strength. Fall quietly. Rise privately. Failure is not the end. It is feedback. It is a lesson disguised as loss. But you can only hear that lesson in silence. When you talk too soon, you block learning. When you explain too fast, you block growth. But when you stay quiet, wisdom appears. Pain becomes teacher. Time becomes healer. Silence becomes guide. You have a choice right now. You can run to noise, or you can return to peace. You can seek attention, or you can seek truth. Attention fades. Truth stays. That is the difference. That is the key. Every time you rise after failure, something changes inside you. You stop needing applause. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing silence. And that is freedom. When life breaks you, stay quiet. When people doubt you, stay focused. When noise rises, stay calm. Because the one who stays quiet always wins in the end. Fall quietly. Rise privately. Let that guide your next chapter. You learned to stay calm in chaos. Now, it is time to learn how to use silence as a tool for power in relationships and influence. Because silence does not just protect, it commands respect. Chapter 9. Observe before you act. Observation is silent intelligence. It is how you see before you move. It is how you win before you act. Most people do the opposite. They rush. They talk. They react. They want to be seen, not to see. But the observer always wins. That is the key. You have a choice. You can speak fast and lose control, or stay silent and learn the truth. Every wise person in history mastered one thing: patience before action. They watched. They studied. They learned. Then, they moved with precision. That is not luck. That is discipline. The power of seeing before doing. Think about a detective. He does not walk into a room and start shouting orders. He looks. He listens. He reads the room. Every word, every pause, every detail matters. He understands that silence speaks. He lets others reveal themselves. He lets noise destroy the careless. Because he knows, the loudest one in the room usually has the least power. You can live the same way. At work. At home. In conflict. Before reacting, stop and see. Ask yourself, What is really happening here? Who benefits if I react? What truth am I missing because I am too emotional? That is silent strength. That is wisdom in motion. The pattern of the wise. Look at great leaders. The best CEOs do not talk to impress. They listen to understand. They spend 90% of meetings watching faces, not reading slides. They are studying reactions. They are measuring confidence. They are spotting lies. Why? Because people expose themselves when they speak. The observer collects that data. And when it is time to act, the observer strikes with perfect timing. That is not luck. That is training. It takes restraint to stay quiet when others rush to speak. It takes strength to wait when others demand action. But that waiting, that silence, that patience, gives you the edge. You see patterns before they form. You catch traps before they close. You find truth before others even notice a problem. The observer always wins. Repeat that again. The observer always wins. The trap of noise. The world worships noise. Social media rewards reaction, not reflection. Everyone wants to be first, not right. You must reject that. You must build the opposite muscle, the muscle of silent analysis. You must train your mind to pause before it posts, to think before it speaks, to study before it decides. Ask yourself, what if I waited one more hour before reacting? What if I said nothing and just watched? What would I learn? Silence creates clarity. Noise creates chaos. That is the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs speak from emotion. Professionals move from information. You have a choice. That is the key. Learn from nature. Look at nature. The predator waits. The tiger does not roar before the hunt. The eagle does not shout before the strike. They observe. They calculate. Then they move once, perfectly. You must do the same. Wait. Watch. Then move with precision. In business. In relationships. In personal growth. Observation is your weapon. Noise is your weakness. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to show your plan. You only need to see clearly. Once you see, you cannot be deceived. Once you observe, you cannot be controlled. The observer always wins. The practice of observation. So how do you build this power? Start small. When you enter a room, do not rush to speak. Look. Listen. Feel the energy. Notice who dominates the space. Notice who stays quiet. Notice what people avoid saying. These are signals. Learn to read them. Next, when someone argues with you, do not fight. Stay calm. Let them talk. Let them reveal their emotion. Because emotion reveals truth. People show their weakness when they are angry. They expose their fear when they speak too fast. They show their insecurity when they talk too much. You just have to see it. That is how you win without fighting. That is how you lead without shouting. Remember, it is not about being passive. It is about being patient. It is not about silence for weakness. It is silence for strategy. That is the difference. Real-world example, the CEO who watched. Let me give you a story. A CEO once said, "I learned more by watching people than by listening to their words." Every week, he would walk through his office quietly. He would not interrupt. He would not question. He would just observe. He watched how people reacted when problems appeared, who stayed calm, who blamed others, who looked for solutions. After a month, he knew who the real leaders were, not by what they said, but by how they moved in silence. That is observation. That is intelligence in action. You can do the same. In your job, in your family, in your relationships. Observe before you act. Watch before you decide. Study before you speak. It changes everything. The silent advantage. When you stay silent, others get uncomfortable. They rush to fill the space. They reveal too much. They lose control. That is your advantage. Because silence makes people expose their true thoughts. If you can stay calm when others panic, you control the tempo. If you can listen when others argue, you control the direction. If you can observe when others attack, you control the outcome. That is power. That is control. That is mastery. But you must train for it. You must resist the urge to jump in. You must accept that observation feels slow. But slow is smooth. And smooth becomes fast. The observer always wins. What you must do. Here is what you must do starting today. First, talk less. Every word you save becomes energy. Use that energy to think. Second, watch more. Observe tone, body, silence, and space. People speak through these things louder than words. Third, stop reacting fast. Take one breath, then another, then decide. Fourth, analyze the outcome. What changed when you waited? What did you see that others missed? Do this daily. Soon, observation becomes instinct. Silence becomes comfort. Clarity becomes natural. You do not need to shout to be heard. You do not need to rush to succeed. You only need to see. The observer always wins. The transformation. This is not just about being quiet. It is about building emotional armor. It is about creating mental control. When you observe, you remove ego. You remove impulse. You remove weakness. And you gain strength, insight, and power. People will think you are cold. Let them. People will think you are detached. Let them. They do not understand silence. They fear it. But you master it. You understand that silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of control. That is what separates the wise from the weak. That is what separates the leader from the follower. You have a choice. Choose to observe. Choose to wait. Choose to win. Transition to the next chapter. Observation is silent strength. It is the secret that turns chaos into clarity. It is how you predict moves before they happen. It is how you lead without noise. You have learned to watch before you act. Now, it is time to go deeper. Because silence alone is not enough. It must be directed. You mastered observation. Now, let us talk about direction. Chapter 10. The energy cost of overreacting. Every reaction has a cost. Every outburst drains your energy. Every emotional storm burns your focus. You think reacting helps. You think it shows power. But it does not. It weakens you. It breaks your balance. It steals your control. You have a choice. You can protect your energy. Or you can waste it on noise. That is the key. The hidden price of overreaction. When you react fast, your brain goes into panic mode. Stress hormones flood your system. Cortisol rises. Adrenaline spikes. Your heart races. Your mind blurs. That is what happens every time you overreact. You lose clarity. You lose judgment. You lose energy. Over time, this becomes your normal state. You wake up tired. You feel restless. You feel empty, even when nothing went wrong. That is the cost of reaction. It is not just mental. It is physical. It is chemical. Your brain is a battery. Every thought, every argument, every emotion drains it. You are leaking energy, one reaction at a time. So ask yourself, how many fights are worth your peace? How many arguments deserve your energy? How many opinions deserve your reaction? Very few. Almost none. You must learn to protect your energy. You must learn to protect your silence. Repeat it. Protect your energy. Protect your silence. Energy is the real wealth. You can rebuild money. You can rebuild reputation. But once your energy is gone, everything slows down. When you are tired, your will fades. When you are drained, your goals fade. When your mind is loud, your vision dies. That is why silence matters. Silence restores. Silence heals. Silence recharges the brain. When you stop reacting, you save power. You stop wasting energy on people who do not matter. You stop fighting battles that lead nowhere. You stop explaining yourself to those who do not want to understand. That is maturity. That is mastery. You do not need to fight for attention. You do not need to prove your worth. You just need to manage your energy. It is not about pride. It is about discipline. The science of reaction. Here is what happens inside your brain. When something triggers you, your amygdala, the emotional center, takes control. It floods your body with stress hormones. It shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part that makes wise decisions. In simple words, emotion takes the wheel. Logic steps aside. That is why people say things they regret. That is why they make bad decisions in anger. They are not thinking. They are reacting. And every reaction burns energy, physical, mental, emotional. You cannot grow if you are always reacting. You cannot focus if you are always triggered. You cannot win if you keep losing energy to stress. Protect your energy. Protect your silence. The cycle of exhaustion. Here is the truth. Overreacting feels good for a moment. It gives a quick release. A hit of dopamine. It makes you feel powerful. But then comes regret. Then comes fatigue. Then comes shame. You start replaying the scene in your head. You imagine what you could have said differently. You drain even more energy. That is the cycle of exhaustion. React. Regret. Repeat. And every loop costs you hours of peace. You lose focus. You lose time. You lose progress. It is not about small anger. It is about long-term damage. Because every time you overreact, your brain gets wired for chaos. You train yourself to stay tense. You build a habit of noise. And soon you cannot rest, even in silence. That is the danger. That is why control matters. The art of energy protection. So how do you protect your energy? How do you stop bleeding power through reaction? You start with awareness. The next time you feel anger rise, pause. Take one deep breath. Do not reply. Do not explain. Do not defend. Just wait. Silence is your shield. Stillness is your weapon. Let the emotion move through you. It will fade. It always fades. Then you can think clearly again. Then you can choose your action. That is control. That is strength. You do not need to match their energy. You do not need to meet their chaos. You just need to protect your calm. Because calm is power. Reaction is weakness. Control is the new power. In this loud world, control is rare. Everyone speaks first. Everyone judges fast. Everyone wants to be right. But the wise person stays centered. The wise person saves their energy. The wise person chooses silence over chaos. They understand every emotion has a cost. They ask, is this reaction worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no. You cannot lead if you are emotional. You cannot build if you are distracted. You cannot focus if your mind is burning. You must protect your energy. You must protect your silence. That is the key. Real-world example, the leader who stayed calm. There was a story about a general in battle. His army was under pressure. Everyone panicked. People shouted orders. Fear spread. But the general stood still. He said nothing. He looked around. He watched every soldier. He breathed slowly. Minutes later, he gave one order, short and clear. And everything changed. The battle turned. The army regained control. Afterward, a soldier asked him, "How did you stay calm when everyone was afraid?" He smiled and said, "I could not afford to waste my energy on panic." That is wisdom. That is leadership. That is silence in action. You can live the same way. You do not need a battlefield. You just need to master your mind. Because the real war happens inside you. Between emotion and control. Between chaos and calm. You choose who wins. The daily practice. Here is what you must start doing. When you wake up, check your mind. Are you calm or tense? If you are tense, pause. Breathe. Reset. Before answering a message, stop. Ask, is this worth my energy? If not, let it go. When someone tries to provoke you, smile inside. Say to yourself, not my storm. Walk away. Keep your peace. Every time you choose silence, you grow stronger. Every time you hold back, you save power. Every time you pause, you win. It is not about being emotionless. It is about being disciplined. It is not about ignoring people. It is about protecting your energy. Because energy is life. And silence keeps it safe. The transformation. If you master this, everything changes. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence grows. Your emotions calm down. Your sleep improves. Your creativity rises. Why? Because your mind is no longer at war with itself. You stop wasting energy on useless reactions. You start using that power to build. Build habits. Build skills. Build peace. Build your life. That is how transformation begins. Not by speaking louder, but by staying quieter. You do not need to fight every noise. You just need to protect your silence. You have a choice. Choose calm. Choose control. Choose silence. Because silence gives power. Reaction takes it away. Protect your energy. Protect your silence. Repeat it again. Protect your energy. Protect your silence. Chapter 11. Quiet confidence in a noisy world. The world is loud. Everyone wants attention. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. But the loudest are rarely the strongest. The noisiest are rarely the most powerful. True power moves quietly. Real confidence builds in silence. That is the secret most people miss. While others post, you prepare. While others talk, you train. While others show off, you build. The world rewards noise, at first. But in the long run, silence wins. Because silence is focus. Silence is direction. Silence is confidence. Repeat this truth. Disappear to dominate. The illusion of noise. Look around. Everyone is chasing views. Everyone is chasing validation. Everyone is performing, not progressing. They think attention means success. They think noise means strength. But it does not. Noise hides insecurity. Silence reveals confidence. A confident person does not need to prove anything. They do not need to shout their plans. They do not need to announce every step. They just move, quietly, powerfully, consistently. That is the difference between attention seekers and achievers. Attention seekers want to be liked. Achievers want to be legendary. You have a choice. You can join the noise. Or you can master the quiet. That is the key. The power of disappearing. When you disappear, people notice your absence. When you return, they notice your results. The time in between, that is your season of silence. That is when the real growth happens. Every great person had a season like this. Steve Jobs disappeared after being fired from Apple. He came back unstoppable. Elon Musk went silent after early failures. He returned and changed industries. Kobe Bryant trained in private. When he returned, he dominated the court. The world only sees the comeback. But the power was built in silence. That is what silence does. It gives you space to sharpen. It gives you time to rebuild. It gives you energy to rise. You do not need to explain your silence. You do not need to defend your grind. You just need to focus on your mission. Disappear to dominate. The discipline of disappearing. Silence takes discipline. It is not easy to step away. It is not easy to stay focused when the world is shouting. But discipline always looks lonely before it looks legendary. You will miss out on trends. You will miss out on parties. You will miss out on noise. But you will gain something greater, mastery. You will gain control. You will gain peace. When you disappear, you remove distraction. You remove opinions. You remove noise. And in that space, you hear something powerful, your own mind. That is where clarity lives. That is where confidence grows. That is where success is born. You do not need approval. You do not need applause. You just need focus. Disappear to dominate. Quiet confidence versus loud insecurity. Loud people want to be believed. Quiet people already believe in themselves. Loud people need validation. Quiet people create proof. Loud people perform to be seen. Quiet people work to be great. That is the difference. Quiet confidence does not mean silence forever. It means you speak when it matters. It means you act when you are ready. It means you show up with results, not excuses. You do not waste time convincing people. You let your work do the talking. That is how legends move. That is how real confidence feels. No noise. No begging. No show. Just results. That is quiet confidence. The modern trap. The modern world tricks you into believing that visibility equals value. It does not. Just because everyone can see you does not mean you are succeeding. Just because everyone hears you does not mean you are wise. People chase followers, not mastery. They chase applause, not discipline. They show everything, their wins, their losses, their pain. But what they reveal most is their weakness. They cannot be alone with their silence. They fear being unseen. They fear being forgotten. So they make noise, constant, meaningless noise. But silence has no fear. Silence does not need witnesses. Silence is proof that you trust your path. That is confidence. That is strength. That is power. Disappear to dominate. How to build quiet confidence. Step 1. Stop explaining. You do not need to justify your silence. You do not need to tell anyone your plans. Just go quiet. Let your actions speak later. Step 2. Master your environment. Create space for focus. Turn off distractions. Protect your energy. Your phone steals focus. Your notifications steal discipline. Your attention is your greatest currency. Guard it. Step 3. Create in private. Build your skills. Study your craft. Work like no one is watching, because no one should be. Private work creates public power. The more you train in silence, the louder your results speak later. That is the secret formula. Silence first. Success later. Why silence builds real strength? Because silence trains patience. It trains control. It trains humility. You stop chasing quick praise. You start loving slow progress. You stop needing others to believe in you. You start believing in yourself. That is the foundation of quiet confidence. You know your worth, even when no one is watching. You know your direction, even when others doubt you. You know your strength, even when you feel alone. That is how leaders rise. That is how legends are built. They disappear to grow. They return to conquer. The energy shift. Here is what happens when you embrace silence. You become calm. You stop reacting. You stop chasing. You start attracting. People feel your energy change. They cannot explain it, but they sense it. You move different. You speak less. You carry weight without words. That is quiet power. It does not shout. It radiates. You do not ask for respect, you command it. You do not demand trust, you earn it. Because silence is not emptiness. It is confidence without noise. It is strength without show. The comeback. There will come a time to return. When your silence has built enough power. When your growth is ready to shine. When that moment comes, speak, move, act. Show your results. And when you do, people will be shocked. They will ask, "Where were you?" You will smile and say, "Working." You owe no explanation. You owe no apology. Your silence was your strategy. Your absence was your investment. Your results are your proof. Disappear to dominate. Real-world example, the silent builder. Think of someone like Michael Jordan. After every loss, he went silent. No interviews. No noise. He just trained. He turned pain into power, privately. And every time he returned, he came back sharper, faster, hungrier. That is the pattern of greatness. Disappear. Build. Return. You can do the same. You do not need fame first. You need silence first. Because silence is the foundation. Noise is decoration. Focus on the foundation. The final lesson. Quiet confidence is not about hiding. It is about building without distraction. It is about moving with purpose. It is about being loyal to your vision, not to other people's opinions. You have a choice. You can keep chasing validation, or you can disappear to dominate. Choose discipline. Choose stillness. Choose silence. Because one day, your silence will be the loudest sound they hear. Disappear to dominate. Disappear to dominate. Disappear to dominate. Chapter 12. When silence speaks louder than words. There comes a moment when silence says everything. It says strength. It says peace. It says control. It says, you no longer need to prove anything. That is the moment you rise above noise. You rise above argument. You rise above approval. You stop explaining. You start evolving. Silence becomes your language of power. You speak less, but your presence speaks more. You explain nothing, but your results say everything. You have a choice. You can waste your breath trying to convince people, or you can stay quiet and let your growth speak for you. That is the key. Real power does not shout. It shows. When you explain too much, you give away your peace. When you defend yourself too often, you give away your confidence. When you argue for your worth, you forget your value. You do not need their permission. You do not need their validation. You only need your focus. It is not about silence. It is about discipline. It is about knowing when to speak and when to hold peace. It is about knowing that words are cheap and energy is gold. Protect that gold. Protect your energy. Sometimes, silence is the sharpest response. When they expect anger, give calm. When they expect tears, give stillness. When they expect reaction, give nothing. Let their confusion be your satisfaction. Because silence makes people face themselves. It turns their words back on them. It forces them to feel the weight of their own noise. And in that moment, you win. Not with volume, but with control. You see, silence is not empty. It is full of answers. It is full of clarity. It is full of strength. When you go silent, you start listening. You listen to your thoughts. You listen to your instincts. You listen to your truth. You start to see what really matters. You see who stays when you stop explaining. You see who respects you when you stop chasing. You see who values peace as much as you do. That is wisdom. That is maturity. You have a choice. You can use words to build noise, or use silence to build power. You can chase approval or command respect. You can try to explain your vision or let your work prove it. Decide. Because those who truly grow stop announcing their plans. They stop posting every step. They stop needing to be seen at every move. They move in silence. They build in silence. They rise in silence. Then one day, the world looks up and asks, when did that happen? It happened when you stopped talking. It happened when you started acting. It happened when you stopped proving and started producing. Your silence tells a story of control, a story of purpose, a story of unbreakable calm. When you stay silent through chaos, people see strength. When you stay silent through failure, people see grace. When you stay silent through success, people see mastery. That is the message. You do not have to say, I have changed. You show it. You do not have to say, I am stronger now. You live it. You do not have to say, I am done with the noise. You prove it through silence. It is not about weakness. It is about wisdom. It is not about hiding. It is about holding your power. It is not about running. It is about rising without a sound. When silence speaks, people listen differently. They feel your confidence. They sense your direction. They see that you are not fighting anymore, because peace has already won. That is the lesson. Do not fight every battle. Do not explain every action. Do not reply to every doubt. Let your results do the talking. Let your growth be your proof. Remember this line. I do not explain. I evolve. Say it again. I do not explain. I evolve. Say it when you feel misunderstood. Say it when people question your decisions. Say it when life tries to pull you into noise. Because evolution needs silence. Transformation needs focus. And peace needs distance. You have a choice. Stay in noise or rise in silence. Argue for attention or earn respect. Complain about pain or build in peace. That is the choice that shapes your destiny. When you walk with quiet confidence, the world will test you. They will provoke you. They will gossip. They will try to pull words out of you. Stay calm. Stay silent. Stay grounded. Your silence is not weakness. It is a message that says, I am not available for nonsense. It is a boundary. It is self-respect. It is emotional control. That is what makes you powerful. In the end, silence becomes your signature. It is your armor. It is your weapon. It is your peace. Every word you save becomes a piece of energy you can invest in your work, in your health, in your dreams. You do not need to say you are changing. You are showing it. You do not need to tell the world you are focused. You are proving it by your actions. You do not need to explain why you are quiet, because silence explains itself. And when people finally notice, it will be too late. You will already be gone. Not broken, but rebuilt. Not bitter, but better. Not silent out of fear, but silent out of strength. That is evolution. That is power. That is peace. Remember this truth forever. You do not explain. You evolve. You do not fight. You rise. You do not shout. You show. Your silence speaks louder than words ever could. Because real strength does not need sound. It needs stillness. And with that, you have mastered the final discipline. You have mastered the art of silence. You have mastered yourself. Now, carry that silence into your next season of life. Build with it. Protect it. Live by it. Because when silence speaks, the world listens. End mantra. I do not explain. I evolve. Say it again. I do not explain. I evolve. That is the voice of your new power. That is the echo of your peace. That is the discipline of silence. Closing. You don't owe the world a reaction. You don't owe noise, explanation, or defense. You owe yourself peace. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you win a battle inside your mind. You shift from chaos to clarity. You stop being controlled and start controlling. Remember, the loud break easily. The quiet endure. Let your silence speak for you. Let your results do the talking. Now, stop reacting. Stop explaining. Go silent. Build. Return unrecognizable.